is this saving grace. And there's no way we can get a full grasp on it. So let me say more than understand. We're going to try to gain a greater appreciation for God's amazing grace. First, I want to look at God's offer. In Isaiah 55:1, as a matter of fact, turn there, please. Isaiah 55:1. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 1. Isaiah 55, verse 1. The Bible says, Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money. Come ye, buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Here God compels them to come and buy wine and milk, to come and get that which they need. And that He invites those not that are rich, not that are wealthy, not that are affluent. He says, you that have nothing to pay with, come to me. Once again, grace is not a matter of God making up the difference that we lack. It's a matter of God paying the entire cost Himself. That's grace. Well, but preacher, I had a little bit. I had some merit, surely, that could go towards that debt. No. In the realm of righteousness, we have absolutely nothing good in us to pay towards our salvation. So God pays the full price Himself. That's grace. Romans 3:22 and 23. Even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Jesus Christ, unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There's no difference. No difference. I told you a little bit about me. I grew up and I was protected from, though I grew up in the midst of a lot and I saw a lot, there was a lot I was protected from also. I told you some of the things that I've never experienced. Brother Phil back there has a very different testimony than I do. Brother Phil, how long have you been clean? 8 years, July. Now, Brother Phil, do you mind telling where you were 8 years ago? You remember what you've told me, what you were mad about. You were in a room and you were mad. He's been in a bad situation. Now, let me tell you something. According to the Word of God, there's no difference. None. I'm a preacher. He is a good kid. By whose standard? Preacher, he was bad. Whenever I'm talking, I'll meet somebody maybe for the first time of the older generation, and I'll say, yeah, they'll say, where are you pastor at? Unity Baptist. Oh, you know John Charles? I'll say, yeah, I do. And so they'll say sometimes they'll say something like this. He was a bad dude before he got saved. I said, man, John Charles, if you knew him when he was young, man, Jesus really changed him. Now, I don't know all about his background. I know some. I know him well enough now to know if he's this way saved. Boy, I can't imagine how he was lost. But in God's economy, He said there's no difference. Oh, but I can jump 15 feet over that canyon. Well, I can jump 100. We still both end up dead. You understand what I'm saying? Before we can appreciate His grace, we've got to understand the depths of our sinfulness. There is no difference. We've all sinned. You know, some would say, well, you got to work your way to heaven, but really, almost no one tries to work their way to heaven. Rather, we assume that what we're doing is sufficient enough to gain us access. You ask someone, you going to heaven? I hope so. I think I am. Why do you think? Well, I'm doing pretty good. Well, now, wait a minute. If you really think that's the basis of your salvation, why not work a little harder so you don't have to think I'm doing good? A friend of mine told me, he preached a sermon recently. He said, I preached on where I was, where I am, and where I hope to go one day. Where I hope to go? What are you counting on to get you there, brother? I didn't ask him that. I just said, okay. Or are we counting on our own merit and our own good? Because, listen, there is none good. What we have done is we have narrowed the gap between us and God. By saying, well, I know there's God, and, well, look, that person's there, and so I'm probably here. I'm probably closer to being like God than this person. We've narrowed the gap without realizing, no, that person's not there, and we're here. We're down there with them. In Luke chapter 18, verses 9 through 14, and he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous. Whew. Okay, now let's pause there for a second. I wonder if we had been standing there that day, would he be speaking to us? And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. So they thought, well, I'm righteous, and that one there's a dirty, rotten scallywag. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee, that's the one who would have thought of himself as righteous, stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful unto me, a sinner. I tell you that this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. You see, that Pharisee grew up going to church, we would say. He knew large portions of the Scriptures by heart. I mean, he lived by the letter of the law and imposed it on others. He dressed right. He spoke right. I mean, he knew when to stand up, when to sit down, how many steps to take. This guy was the model of being godly. And yet he says, I'm thankful, God, that I'm not like other men, as extortioners and murderers and liars and thieves, and even as this guy. But here, Paul says, addressing that issue in the book of Acts or Romans, he says, there is no difference. Well, at least I'm not a thief. There is no difference. Well, at least I'm not an alcoholic. There is no difference. At least I'm not a murderer. There is no difference. At least I'm not a homosexual. At least I'm not a pedophile. There is no difference. We all fall short. We're all rotten. I thought about entitling this sermon, We're all a bunch of scum. And let me tell you, this first sermon here in this series is not going to be the most encouraging thing, but in order to get to the good part, we've got to understand fully the bad part. Often we, like the Pharisee, become confident in our own righteousness and our own goodness. We hear someone use foul language and we think, oh, how could they? Now, I don't like to hear foul language either. But I'm no better than they are, except for Jesus Christ. This was an answer, Romans chapter 10, verses 10 through 12. Paul gives us another perspective. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. For the Scripture saith, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. For there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. This was an answer to the Jews believing that they were better than the Gentiles. They said, hey, we received the oracles of God. I mean, we have Abraham to our father. And Paul says here, look, there is no difference. In Isaiah 53:6, we see one of the things that's at the heart of sin. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one, it's all of us, to his own way. And the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of who? Us all. At the heart of sin is this right here. We are going our own direction. Doing our own thing. And some of those things may not necessarily be what the world would call bad things, but we're doing it our way. It's when we do good trying to merit the righteousness of God. Say, well, if I do this, I'll get to heaven. If I do this, I'll gain the favor of God. And God says, no. You're still doing it your own way. Look, these Jews, they still sacrifice the animals. They observe the holy days. They had their certain article of clothing and how to wear it, and they knew their scriptures, and they said their prayers, and they observed all these observances. They did all this, and they did that saying, this is what will make us righteous. And God said, no. You're still trying to do it your own way. It's akin to a territory rebelling against its own its country's government. It doesn't matter to the government how kind those people are and what good works they may be doing. If they're still in rebellion against that federal government, then they're in rebellion. At the heart of our sin is this right here. We go our own way. It's called rebellion. We have rebelled against a holy God. You know why we rebel? Because we're rebellious. No, preacher, I don't rebel. I don't shake my fist at God and dare him to do anything. No, but we still go our own way. Now, preacher, not me. Then God's a liar here. He says we've all done this. We've all sinned. We're all guilty. The children of Israel, they come to the promised land. They send 12 spies, one from each tribe, over into the promised land. Those guys spend time over on the other side of Jordan. They come back. Those two guys, Joshua and Caleb, they come back and say, hey, man, this is great. It's everything the Lord said it would be. Let's go take it. The 10 others said, hey, no. Look, there are giants over there. The children of the Anakims are over there. We can't go over there. We look like grasshoppers and they'll kill us. Joshua and Caleb say, you're right. There are giants over there. But God's promised us we can do this. So the people say, no, we'll not go up. God tells Moses tells the people, okay, you're right, you won't go up. You'll not go into the promised land until everybody from this generation has died. He goes, oh, man, we blew it now, didn't we? Well, I tell you what we ought to do. We just need to go on up. The next morning they get up, they put on their battle gear, they get their armament, and Moses sees them and they're saying, what are you doing? We're going up like God said. And he said, no, God said not to go now. You've already made that decision and God's made his. Now you cannot go. You'll go without him, you will lose. And what do? They do it their own way. They go up against God's word and they lose. Aren't we just like that? You see, we have a weak view of God's grace because we have a weak view of our sin. We dismiss it so often as, oh, well, everybody makes mistakes. Oh, well, everybody falls short. We say that, well, nobody's perfect. We talk about our failures and our defeats, but we don't acknowledge our sin. Our filthy, foul, rotten rebellion against God. Now, it's very opposite the Bible's view of sin. In 2 Samuel 12, 9 and 10, listen to this here. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? This is Nathan speaking to David here after a sin with Bathsheba. Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me. That word despise means to view as despicable, vile, worthless. God said, in doing what you've done, you've viewed me as despicable. You have viewed me, your God that made you king, the creator. You have viewed me as worthless and vile. The Bible speaks of our sin as wickedness, evil, rebellion, disobedience, defiance. Our sin, no matter how we want to grade it or classify it, boils down to this right here. It is treason against a holy, almighty creator and judge of this universe. Sin, it goes beyond a series of actions, but it involves the heart. Our sin is a state of corruption and vileness and filthiness before God. Listen to Zechariah 3, 1 through 4. And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, even the Lord that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this the brand plucked out of the fire? Now Joshua, now this is the high priest here, who when he stood before God would be in these immaculate, just incredibly decorated clothing. But listen to this. Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments. He stood before the angel, and he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with a change of raiment. Here's the high priest who was supposed to go to God being purified. He's standing before God in these garments that are filthiness. And that filthiness of garments is supposed to picture our corruption and the pollution of our sin. When the Bible speaks of what God did for us, he speaks of God as one who justifies the ungodly, not the righteous. Because there's none righteous, no, not one. In Romans 4:5, but to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly. He reveals himself, we see, to those who do not seek him in Romans 10:20. But Isaiah was very bold and saith, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me. That tax collector, he was justified when he said, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. But that Pharisee who stood there saying, hey, God, look at me, look what I do. And thank you so much that I'm not like that guy over there. He walked away in his righteousness, everything that he said he wasn't. An extortioner, a liar, a publican, a sinner. Listen to what this fellow here said. Grace does not contemplate sinners merely as undeserving, but ill-deserving. It is not simply that we do not deserve grace, but we do deserve hell. Every one of us. It's not only that we don't deserve his grace, but we do deserve his wrath. Now, who needs this grace? This great grace. And by the way, remember, not one person needs more grace than another, for we're all spiritually bankrupt and in debt far beyond what we could pay. So who needs that amount of grace? Every one of us do. The sinner as well as the saint. Every one of us need that same grace. Neither our merits nor our demerits determine how much grace we need. Grace does not supplement our merits, and it does not make up for our demerits. It's not earned by our merits, and grace is not withdrawn because of our demerits. We say, but I've done such and such, and even once we're saved, let's go a step beyond the saving grace, and we say, but look at all I do. Listen to this, Isaiah 64:6. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousnesses, everything we do that's good, all of our righteousnesses are as filthy rags. The best that we can do in an effort to become righteous is of no avail. Romans 11:6. And if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more works. Here's a spiritual principle. To the extent that you are clinging to any vestiges of self-righteousness or putting any confidence in your own spiritual attainments, to that degree, you are not living by the grace of God in your life. Some can say, well, wait a minute. Brother Ronnie, I'm a Sunday school teacher. Well, I'm a bus worker. I'm a deacon. I'm a pastor. I'm a preacher. I'm a choir member. I do this. All of our righteousnesses are filthy rags. Look, the things we do not make us righteous. There's only one thing that makes us righteous. That's our faith in Jesus Christ. Actually, it's Jesus Christ that makes us righteous. That's it. Nothing that we can do. For the saved, we may rarely think of our merits on our part, but we're painfully aware of our demerits, aren't we? Oh, man, God's not going to love me as much if I did that or don't do this. Wait a minute. He loved me when there was nothing to love to begin with. He gave me His grace, not only when I didn't deserve it, but when I deserved this opposite. I deserved wrath. So now that I'm saved, because I sin, and it's a horrible thing, but to think that God would withdraw His grace from me when He gave His grace to me when I was in debt anyways. Sometimes we live as if we live in fear, as if our demerits will cause God to withdraw His grace from us. But if that's the case, it's not grace after all, is it? You see, God gives His grace without regards to our failings and our falling short. I like the verse that says that He sends the rain to the who? The just and the unjust. You have two farmers out there, and he doesn't just say, well, you know what, I'm going to make it rain on that guy's crops because he's good and not on that crop. No, He's a gracious God. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Those of us who have grown up in a Christian home and were saved at an early age, we ought to be just as amazed at the grace of God as anyone who would have indulged in those sins that we would label as gross and vile. I remember a guy that had gotten saved and lived a rough lifestyle. This is when I started going to Liberty Baptist Church, where I ended up working. And that church was full of reformed drug addicts, drunks, cons. They had gotten saved. And man, I mean, they would stand up, wave their Bible. They would shout, jump, run laps around the church, walk over the pews. I mean, it was something else. I first went there, it kind of scared me. Why'd you go back? Because I went there for the first time was because of a pretty girl, and she was still pretty that second time, so I kept going. I grew to love the place. And I realized, man, they're so excited because God's forgiven them of so much. And then this guy asked me one day, he said, Ronnie, why don't you shout? I'm thinking, what do you need me for, man? Y'all doing a good enough job. He said, I wish I had a testimony like yours. But then I realized this, you know what? He really doesn't have any more reason to be excited about the grace of God than I do. Because I was going to the same hell that he was before he got saved. God showed no more grace on him than he showed on me. I didn't need less grace. I had nothing to offer. I was still indebted to a holy God. I was guilty of treason against the ruler of the universe. So were you. We have no reason to think that we should not be just as amazed at the grace of God as John Newton was. Grace and good works are mutually exclusive. In this thing of earning our righteousness, we do not stand with one foot on grace and another on our good works in hope of salvation. Some will say, well, yeah, and I've actually heard people say, yeah, I believe you've got to trust Jesus Christ as your Savior. Boy, they're putting their foot over here on grace, and they say, but you also have to be living right. How right do I have to live? We've all fall short. No. I can't live good enough. You see, God's demand is perfection. Anybody in here perfect? No, I can't put one foot on that at all. I have to stand with both feet solidly planted on Jesus Christ and Him alone. If we're trusting that God will somehow recognize our morality or our religious attainments or our good works as merits towards our salvation, then we're sadly mistaken. And listen, I used to say that's a big thing around these parts. But as I think back, it's a big thing everywhere. Man, I've heard people say, well, if you're doing this, you can't be saved. Well, wait a minute. So it depends on what I'm doing or what Christ did. I've heard some say, well, then they just never got saved because they're doing that. Well, wait a minute. The grace of God is exclusive. When it comes to salvation, the grace of God is exclusive from our good works. All I've got to do is place my faith in Christ. And when I do that, God in His grace, He forgives me and gives me the same amount of grace that He would have given Hitler had Hitler turned to Christ. I grew up going to church off and on for a little while, then steadily from middle school on. Some of you, how many of you in here grew up going to church? I've heard one person say they were a drug addict. Their mama drugged them to church every time the doors was open. Let me tell you something. That makes us no better than the next guy. And our salvation is dependent 100% on the grace of God. And until you get a hold of that fact that, look, you know what? I'm not good. I'm filthy and wretched and vile, then the grace of God will never mean to you what it needs to mean to you. And it will never excite you. It will never bring a smile to your face like it would if you realized I needed grace just as much as that drug addict and that murderer and that liar and that thief. Because listen, there is no difference. Follow me, church? Now look, I know that wasn't all good news, was it? Basically, to sum it up, I'm saying it like this. Man, we're rotten. But there's good news coming in this thing of grace. God gives His grace to us, right? And we're going to study it more over the succeeding weeks here. Let's pray. Father,